In the last lesson, we looked at parabolas in standard form. That's easy because we can just look at the vertex, plot it, know what A is, all that stuff. In this lesson, we're going to be concentrating more on what happens when it's in that general form. Well, we'll still need to find that vertex H and K, but it's not there. So we're going to have to use these formulas. H is going to be negative b over 2a. That should be somewhat familiar. Remember the quadratic formula looks like this? Well, if you notice, this part is this part. That's what we're doing. And then we're going to take that answer and plug it in and get k. I know that looks really scary. We're going to go step by step. It's not going to be that bad. We will have to deal with a few fractions. Just hold on. You'll be okay. Alright, so notice we have the same set of directions. We've got to graph it, we have to find the axis of symmetry, the domain and the range, and we also have to find the intercept. So a lot of stuff is happening in this problem, and it's not in standard form. So the first thing we have to do is we have to find the vertex. That's going to tell us so many things. Right, so our vertex, remember, is H and K. So H is negative b over 2a. So just like the quadratic formula, because these are quadratic equations, you need to know what a, b, and c are. So a is in front of x squared, b is in front of x, and of course c is 7. And yes, c is not in this formula, but just to say. So H is the opposite of b, so that would be positive 6 over 2 times 1. So the first half of my vertex is 3. Now how do I find the second half of that? Well, I go back to my function and I find f of 3. That's really what that means. F of h, what was h? It was 3. So I have to plug in 3 everywhere there is an x. So we have 9 minus 18 plus 7. That's negative 9 plus 7, I believe, is negative 2. So that is my vertex. So 1, 2, 3, down 2. That's my vertex. How do I graph it? Remember, we're going to use A. So since A is 1, we go from the vertex over 1, always the 1, and then whatever A is. So over 1 and up 1, over 1 and up 1. And remember, you cannot continue that process. What else do we have to find? The axis of symmetry. Remember? All right, so the axis is x equals your h value. The domain, that's a gimme, always all real numbers. The range, bottom to top. So what's the lowest y value to the highest y value? So that's a repeat of what we did in the other lesson. The only new stuff is right here where we actually have to find the vertex. What else does this problem ask us to find? We have graphed it. We've got the axis of symmetry, the domain, and the range, but what about these intercepts? We practiced that in the last lesson too. First of all, look at the graph. From the graph, can you tell me what the answer is? No. So we have to do the algebra. So we're going to let y equal to 0 squared minus 6 times 0 plus 7. Remember, you let x equal to 0. This is really easy. Really easy math. So if I had bigger graph paper, or actually I do, or better graphing, that would actually come way up there. Now, x-intercepts. Well, I know they're somewhere about there, but I have to do the algebra. So, what's that algebra? It says let y equal to 0. Can you factor this? Unfortunately, no. So if you can't factor it, you have to use that quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root. B squared minus 4ac AC all over 2A. So we have 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 28 over 2. So that's negative, nope, that's positive 6, sorry about that, plus or minus the square root of 8 over 2. Need to simplify that 8. And then, because all 3 are divisible by 2, you can reduce, divide by 2. 2 goes into 2 once, that leaves that. 2 goes into 2 on the bottom once. So those are my x-intercepts. And if you wanted to punch that into the calculator to get a decimal, you would see that 1 is a little bit bigger than 1. Maybe 1's right over there. But again, it was something we could not get from the graph. Let's do the next one. Okay, so first of all, we have to find the vertex. So we have to know that h is negative b over 2a. So a is negative 1, that's right there. B is 4, and then of course C is negative 2. So H is negative 4 over 2 times negative 1. So I've gotten half of my vertex. Remember, if I'm going too fast, pause that video. Rewind. Take your time. Now, how do you get K? You take that answer and you plug it in for x up into your function. Order of operations, square that first, keep that negative. So let's see, 4 minus 2, I believe that is also 2. So my vertex is at 2, 2. My a value is negative 1. That means it's going to go upside down, and so from our vertex over 1 and down 1. And once again, from my graph, if it's perfect, I might be able to kind of tell, but not positive. Oops, I'm skipping stuff, so hold on. Axis of symmetry is x is equal to 2. Remember, it's always that value. The domain, that's easy. And the range, remember, bottom to top. Bottom to top. Now, let's talk about those intercepts. Okay, so we're going to say y equals negative 0 squared plus 4 times 0 minus 2. Again, very easy arithmetic. So I can make my picture a little bit better if I wanted to. What are those x-intercepts? We're going to say 0 equals to negative x squared plus 4x minus 2. Can I factor that? No. So here comes the quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So let's see, a negative and a negative and a negative, that's negative, and that's going to be 8. So 16 minus 8 is 8 again. So we have negative 4 plus or minus 2 square root of 2 over 2, oops, negative 2. Now I can divide everything either by positive 2 or negative 2. I think I'm going to divide by negative 2. So negative 2 goes into negative 4 positive 2 times. That's going to say plus or minus, and then that goes to positive 1. Are we getting it? It's a lot of stuff in one problem. Let's do this last example. You with me? Vertex h equals negative b over 2a. So a is 2, b is 4, c is negative 1. So negative b, that's the opposite of b, over 2a. That's the first half of your vertex. How do you get the second half? You come up here and you plug in the answer you just got. Order of operations. So let's see, that's -2 minus 1 is -3. So my vertex is -1, -3. Since A is 2, that means it goes up, so from my vertex, over 1 and up 2. Over 1, up 2. Axis of symmetry, x equals -1. Domain, range, bottom to top. What's that low y value? And then it goes on up forever. Now, you can either do the math or not. Look at the picture. What is your y-intercept? Can you see it right there? Isn't it at -1? But if you're not sure, you can come up here and plug in 0 for x. What we can't do is I can't tell from the graph where that point is and that point is, so I've got to do the algebra again. And no, you can't factor it, but if you can, then factor it. Quadratic formula. So this time I have two negatives, so that's positive, so that's 16 plus 8, which would be 24, over 4. So simplifying the square root of 24, I can take out a 2 and leave a 6. Now, what are these all three divisible by? They're divisible by 2. And those would be my x-intercepts. Now I want to look at one more thing before we go. Let's say you had a problem, you've done all the work, and your graph looked like this. And you knew that was exactly 3. Okay, let's just pretend for a minute. And I said, okay, what are your intercepts? Well, you could look at the graph and tell me your y-intercept was 3. But you also should be able to look at your graph and not do any algebra. Does it cross the x-axis? No. So you would say no x-intercepts. Why bother with all the algebra when the picture tells you your answer? Same thing if you had something like this. Now maybe you might have to do the algebra to find the y-intercept way down here, but again you should know that this would be no x-intercepts. So save yourself some time by looking at the picture and seeing, once again, can you answer the question about the intercepts?